Welcome back to the Daily Dope Show. I'm Brando, your host. And, let's see. This is a quick update to the video I just made about the Kratom situation, specifically with what was going on in Ohio. And by the way, I haven't really looked into that, but I'm guessing that, the avalanche of comments are still coming into the Ohio Health Department of Health, or whatever they call it. So this video, I'm just going to talk about specifically when the FDA director here, Scott Gottlieb, basically parroted the claim of the Ohio Department of Health that there were 6 people who died from Kratom. Now, and I think this is already a walkback tweet right here. Like there was something earlier that basically was like by Kratom alone, or it just made it sound like it was mostly Kratom. This don't sound as damning, but the Inquirer, and when he's talking about the Inquirer, he's talking about the Cincinnati Inquirer. So the Inquirer reports that in 2016 and 2017, 6 people died in Ohio from Kratom, according to the Ohio Department of Health data. Now, even if that is a walkback, that still sounds pretty much like if they didn't have Kratom in their system, they wouldn't have died. And there's a reason to jump on this or whatever. So I don't know. And anyway, he goes on, and the latest state drug trend report found that people were buying Kratom from heroin dealers in Akron-Canton region. You know what he didn't parrot? He didn't parrot the part where they were talking about how people were injecting Kratom, because I think even he knows that was total bullshit and that nobody's injecting Kratom. I don't think you can even inject Kratom. I'm pretty sure there's no way to do that. So that was the FDA director making a claim, or repeating a claim that was made about 6 people that died from Kratom. Doesn't say how they died from Kratom. Doesn't say anything other than that they died from Kratom. Right there. 6 people died in Ohio from Kratom. Okay. And I caught this tweet earlier today from somebody I follow on Twitter named Nick Wing, who's a reporter for the Huffington Post, who is glued to this Kratom deaths phenomenon story. And he's the go-to guy if you want to know about it, because he every step of the way, every time these Kratom deaths come up, he has investigated on his own exactly what these claims are, got coroner reports to detail these Kratom deaths, and then I've made videos to report on this to make sure that anybody that don't know who Nick Wing is, and maybe they know who I am. I don't have the biggest following on the earth, but maybe someday. And maybe that way, a lot more people will know about some of this stuff going on. But these deaths, in my opinion, have nothing to do with Kratom. It's total horse shit, as usual, coming from the FDA and coming from these coroners that keep making these reports, or these people like the Ohio Department of Health who take reports that don't actually say Kratom was the cause of death and say that it's a Kratom death. Now, the standard for something being a Kratom death should never be that it was just in somebody's system and somebody died, because we don't even know how long Kratom, or the active ingredients that they can test for, like mitragynine, we don't know how long that stays in your system. And if they do, they haven't told anybody about it. But we know when it comes to when they do this shit with other substances too. Like the whole 70,000 people died in 2017 of an overdose death. Are you counting people twice or 3 times or 4 times? Because you count everything. Like when you're saying you are going to count a Xanax death. Well, if it had fentanyl in there, you still say it's a Xanax death. And then when you go to count the fentanyl death, you still say that was a fentanyl death too. Which is it? Why don't we have a category for just combo deaths? And even then, you still have to prove to me that there's some kind of actionable way that Kratom or its constituents can cause a death, or are causing these deaths. Like with opioids, we know that it slows down and even can stop your respiratory function. That's how you die from opioids. We know that. We can demonstrate it in a lab with rats. We can, find somebody that died from opioids, and the signs and symptoms look like they suffocated. So, anyway, let's go ahead and look at what Nick Wing has to say about this so-called Kratom deaths. He also answered the claim about the 7 out of 10 Kratom users shooting up, which I also, questioned in my last video. He said, participants claim 7 of 10 Kratom users are shooting up. If this is gauging use by individuals subject to drug screening and by people addicted to heroin, that makes some sense. Can anybody explain better how you would inject Kratom, how it would vary from taking it orally? Since I don't think Kratom really gets you high like you would if you did heroin, it's not anything like that, so I don't really understand why even the people that made this report. Now, the report this comes from, in case you don't know, let me just go ahead and run over that real quick in case you didn't watch the last video. This is the report, and what they did is they sent a bunch of people out into the field to try to score drugs and do all this other stuff. Who knows if they actually did the drug. I didn't read the details of the report, but they basically are trying to say that these people went out in the field and they're giving you all these details about these drugs that they were given assignments to look into. And some of this stuff, when you read it, just looks like total bullshit. For example, you read the marijuana one, the methamphetamine, and eventually you get down in here, I think it was page 25, Kratom, page 26. 25, yeah. Reportedly Kratom, and this is the one where they tell you that people are shooting it up. Kratom is available in Akron, Canton, and Cleveland regions. Participant in the Akron, Canton region reported being able to purchase the drug from heroin dealers and throughout internet purchase, while community professionals indicate that the drug can be purchased at head shops. Participant at the Cleveland region reported being able to purchase the drug in powdered form and in capsule. Participants reported that the drug looks similar to brown powdered heroin. No, it's green, so it doesn't look like brown powdered heroin. It looks like green powdered Kratom. Anyway, produces similar effects as heroin. That's not true either. And is primarily used by individuals subject to drug screening and by people addicted to heroin who use the drug to alleviate opiate withdrawal symptoms. Both of those things might be true, and they might even actually be a positive thing, so I don't understand why that's bad. Participants reported that the most common route of administration for Kratom is intravenous injection, aka shooting. Participants in the Akron-Canton region estimate that out of 10 Kratom users, 7 would shoot the drug and 3 would orally consume the drug, including drink it as a tea. Whatever, dude. That right there, that disqualifies this whole report as being completely suspect, as being bogus. Because everybody knows that you don't shoot Kratom with a needle. Everybody knows that. People that never even heard of Kratom before, you tell them what it is, and then you ask them, do you think you could shoot that with a needle? And they'd be like, no, hell no. It's just ground up leaves. You don't, there's no way to shoot that up. So that just disqualified your whole report. But still, we have Scott Gottlieb over here talking about these 6 people died in Ohio from Kratom. From Kratom, as in, if their Kratom wasn't in there, they wouldn't have died. That's what that's kind of saying. Nick Wing tweets, I've also gotten additional info on the 6 Kratom deaths in the Ohio Department of Health claims took place between 2016 and 17. None of them appear to involve mitrogen 9 alone. He says, these were reported to me in a sort of weird way, so bear with me. Here's the first case. Cause of death, fatal cardiac rhythm. Determined to be due to, quote, new onset regular consumption of Kratom tea. Okay. How do you go from somebody died from a fatal cardiac rhythm to that was because of Kratom? You can't do that, man. You got to demonstrate how the Kratom would cause the heart attack, or the rhythm being weird, or whatever it is. Hey, maybe that guy died because he injected the Kratom, and it went in his heart and clogged it up. I don't know, I would highly recommend nobody ever inject Kratom. Second case, the cause of death was acute intoxication due to the combined effects of carfentanil, mitragynine, oxycodone, and alprazolam. Determined to be self-administered overdose by drugs. Okay, cool. Why is kratom? Why is it that that person died from kratom? Huh? You could just take kratom right off that list, and I'm pretty sure that person was still dead, no matter what. So kratom wasn't depending. This person didn't die because kratom, from kratom, as you say, Scott. Third case, cause of death, polypharmacy drug intoxication, gabapentin. I can never say that one, but you guys see what it says. Gabapentin, doxylamine, ephedrine, and mitragynine. Okay. Again, if you took the mitragynine off that list, and you could probably get rid of the ephedrine too, the person probably would have still died. Almost guaranteed. But you know what? We should study this kind of stuff to find out if people can die if they mix kratom with these other drugs that they usually don't die from. But what we've seen with gabapentin is that people are mixing that with other drugs to make them more potent, like doxylamine and ephedrine or whatever other drug you mix it with. It makes that drug get you higher, I guess. I don't know. I don't know why people are mixing them, but that when I see that a lot of people are dying from it, a lot of people are doing it, that might be one of the reasons why they're doing it. And somehow nobody's talking about going after gabapentin like it's some kind of thing, but it shows up if you look at the database of the 70,000 overdose deaths. There's a lot of that in there, a lot. It's not even like on the radar of the, you know, people worried about what's killing people out there for drug overdoses. So again, this was determined to be a polypharmacy drug intoxication. Why? How do you go from that to kratom? You know, they died from kratom. You don't. The fourth case, cause of death, was Haemophilus influenza and Haemophilus parainfluenza and pneumonia. So this person died of the flu and pneumonia. And actually determined to be due to unknown circumstances. Guessing mitragynine must have also been found in the person's system, working to verify, says Nick Wing, who's doing this great investigative journalism here, looking into this a little deeper for you. He's a senior reporter at HuffPost, and he writes about people, politics, things that get us in trouble, and some other stuff. Go give him a follow on Twitter if you want to see more of this yourself. The fifth case, the cause of death was, quote, multiple drug intoxication. And again, we see carfentanil. Something that we've seen in Ohio more than anywhere else in America. What's going on with Ohio having a lot of carfentanil? That is a scary thing, man. It's like carfentanil is so powerful of an opioid that such a small amount of it is needed to kill you that I wouldn't even put anything else on that list and even call it a poly thing. Anytime you see carfentanil involved, that person probably didn't even know that that was what it was. And they're dead. So again, this death was determined to be due to substance abuse. And I just want to go back to this tweet here. 6 people died in Ohio from kratom. We've seen 2 from carfentanil that I would take kratom off there, off of Scott's sentence, and just put carfentanil right in place of it. Whereas you could take kratom off the list of things that these people died from, and they still died. So Scott, you're looking really intellectually bankrupt here to even put this tweet out. I mean, it's looking totally like the most gutter thing that somebody in your position could do right now. Did you even try to look at this list? Or, you know, that's your job. Your job is to make sure that you're right about these drugs and these substances and stuff. You don't go out and tell people that people are dying from something if they're not. That's huge malpractice. Huge. And finally, the last one, the cause of death was acute intoxication by combined effects of fentanyl, cocaine, and mitragynine. Again, you can take the kratom right off the list. This person, by the way, also metastatic breast carcinoma. So I'm not sure if that being in the report means that, you know, they died from the breast cancer, because probably not, because this determined to be due to self-administered overdose by drugs. They're almost saying this is a suicide. So this is a suicide. Somebody that has breast cancer, it is self-administered overdose. They didn't say if they did it on purpose or not, so I'm not going to throw this person who's not even named here under the bus, but we'll just say, for the sake of argument, that they were just taking their meds. They had fentanyl. Maybe they were taking some cocaine to stay awake. We don't know if that's prescription or not. Cocaine does have a Schedule II family of drugs that you can get. And then mitragynine, not on the list. Shouldn't be on there. Fentanyl will kill you on its own. He says, Nick says, I'd prefer to have original documents to understand a little more about the findings issued in these cases, but the Department of Health said they couldn't provide autopsy or toxicology reports. Boo. We should be able to, that shit should all be public information. Either way, it looks like 4 polypharmacy overdose cases, 3 involved fentanyl or analogs, and 1 involved multiple RX and OT over-the-counter drugs. 1 person died of the flu and pneumonia. 1 died of cardiac rhythm, which has been blamed on Kratom tea, and that's a new one. That's the first time anybody's reported cardiac rhythm being blamed on Kratom. So, I mean, if that was like, if there was already like 3 other people that was the case, then maybe that would be a thing, but it ain't. And that's all for the Nick Wing's thread there. And that's all for Scott Gottlieb's thread. And that's all for your whole case on Kratom, man. Just because their whole thing was discredited with the, you know, oh, the way people are doing Kratom out there is 7 out of 10 of them are injecting. And I'm willing to wager that there's more things in that report. And I might even comb through it to see if there's more things in that report that were just pulled right out of someone's ass. Because there is absolutely no way that that was something that someone that did real research came up with in the field. People injecting Kratom. Come on. But and the reason I keep bringing that up is Scott Gottlieb is highly irresponsible for, you know, basically parroting this 6 death stuff from this report. Or even parroting it from, you know, he's got his hands washed really good here, because he says according to the Cincinnati Enquirer, and we know that the Cincinnati Enquirer was using this report to get their claims, or maybe they talked directly to the Ohio Department of Health. Either way, I'm pretty sure that he's talking about that. The board concluded Kratom has a high potential for abuse. The board is full of shit. So we know that there's something shady going on. This is a vast conspiracy between a lot of coroners' offices, people, you know, on the ground, who knows why or what, but the motive is clear: to insulate Big Pharma as they sell their cure for the opioid addiction, which doesn't involve Kratom or CBD or any kind of medical marijuana. So, you know, they're going to fight their battles where they can. And this is ridiculous right here. This is just seeing just a complete repeat of the reefer madness of the 1930s going down. Only this is on Kratom. So, again, that's all I got on this. I don't know, subscribe if you want to stay updated on this. I usually don't do this many stories about Kratom in a month, let alone a week. But I just felt like this had to be exposed for what it is. Basically pure bullshit.